Hi, everyone, and welcome to this presentation, which is about a topic that's very near and dear to my heart, which is overcoming sugar and carb addiction, so that you can not just lose your weight, but keep it off. Because this is the key. Not everybody, of course, not everyone has this craving for carbs and sugar, and it's such an important part of their journey. But for many, many women who have come to see me, it is a really big part of their journey. And what I found, having done this now for 13 years, is it's something that we can, sometimes put on hold, or we have these periods where we're feeling strong and motivated. And we don't do this stuff with sugar anymore or carbs. But if the risk is for some of us, then the minute stress happens or something, we have a challenge, it's very easy to slip back into the food and back to these habits. And I think, and of course, if you do that, this is when your weight will come back. So part of what I want to share with you tonight is this process to go through to work out, okay, with where I'm at right now in the food, am I happy with where I am, or possibly would it be really good for me to take the next step and really deal with this issue, so that once I've lost the weight, I am actually able to keep it off, and it can make such a huge difference. So I've created this training really, to help if you are concerned about, how you're currently eating carbs, or maybe you are having a lot of craving for carbs and sugar. And basically, you're a bit tired of it. You don't want your journey to be constantly defined by this relationship with carbs. And I'm also guessing that, you'd like to do something about it, but you're just not sure where to start. And like all topics of nutrition, there is no shortage of advice out there, or suggestions, or supplements, or diet plans, or quit, the carbohydrate addict diets. I mean, there's so many options. And I think the perspective that I bring to the table is it's the same when I'm coaching one-on-one, because I have suffered from this addiction myself. The advice that I give always comes from the perspective of walking this path myself for many years, and also helping a lot of women who are on this path. And it is quite different from the weight loss side. When I'm working with someone, especially someone who's got a strong sugar problem, I take quite a different approach to just a normal weight loss appointment. So this is my approach. It's very much based on my experience of quitting sugar myself successfully, and now keeping it off for 10 years with a process that worked. And that's what I'm going to share with you tonight. And it's also the process that I use with clients. So this is very much, I guess, my process that's worked for me and others. So what we're going to talk about, I'm just going to share a little bit more about my experience of going through this, the triggers that really made me realize that it was time to take action. We're going to talk a little bit about the difference between what a craving is and when it kind of crosses this line to become a little bit more serious, and the word addiction, we'll talk about definitions in a little bit, but it's really what it comes down to is control. I think that's a big thing. A lot of people, when they're struggling with their nutrition, it's because they can't get control back over their eating, and addiction can be a big part of that. The two big ones that I see in this office are either addiction to food or alcohol. We won't be talking about alcohol tonight. That's a different topic. I might have to do a presentation about that in the future, but really tonight's about the food side of it. We're going to talk about, knowing when to take action. And then I'm going to share this 5-step formula that I've said I went through and go through with other people when they're working with me one-on-one to really deal with the sugar. And I just hope this is going to give you an overview, an idea to get the ball rolling, to get you thinking about it, and not just thinking about it, but giving you a framework so you can really work out how to get started if you want to, if you decide that that would be good action for you. Now, not everyone has to quit sugar. Before I talk about my journey too, let me just say that Certainly, not everybody has to quit sugar or quit carbs. Like I said, this was quite a specific subgroup of the whole weight loss category. I would say if we're looking at weight loss, do you have to quit carbs and not eat them? No, you don't. This is not about weight loss. What it's truly about when we dig down to the core, it's about our ability to be in control and the mental health side of things, which is very much tied into our ability to be in control. And my story is a perfect example of this because my sugar addiction, which was terrible for 7 years, I had a terrible sugar addiction, but for me, it didn't affect my weight. So this was part of the reason that it probably went on for 7 years, because I used to justify my actions with sugar. And I would say things like, I'm allowed this. It's just a treat. I'm allowed treats. Everyone else is having treats. This is my treat. When I was having that little bicky or something else after dinner. And the fact that I wasn't gaining weight from it, probably I used that as a justification for quite a long time until I stepped back and started looking more within between my ears. But looking at these pictures, this is me when I was at the height of my weight journey, my high. So this was me when I was in my early 20s, where I weighed 30 kilos more than I do now. But interestingly enough, when I was really overweight, I didn't have sugar wasn't really a problem, which I know sounds strange. I just kind of ate everything. Like, it was carbs, it was alcohol, it was just, sandwiches for lunch and toast for breakfast. So it was just eating all the carbs. But it's interesting, I didn't really do the silly things with sugar that I did later on in life. So I would look at my journey and say, this is just me being overweight. I did not do the more addiction kind of things with sugar at this point. Where it reared its head for me was this phase of life. So in this photo here, when I was at my lowest weight, which was when my son was, my little boy, isn't he gorgeous, in his little kilt? Isn't that cute? He's 18 now. Oh my gosh. Anyway, don't get sidetracked, Cheryl. Getting distracted by looking at my gorgeous little boy there. By the way, I used to steal a lot of his food. Poor Carlos. In fact, he was the trigger that got me really needing to deal with my sugar addiction. So children are great teachers, aren't they? But in this photo, when I was at my thinnest or at my lowest weight, my sugar addiction was terrible. And this is the thing with addiction. It doesn't look a certain way. And you never know, even the way someone looks on the outside, we don't know what's going on in their mind. And I think that's a really key thing to be aware of. This addiction problem and the craving, other people might not realize by looking at you or watching your behavior in public, but we know what is going on in our head. And that's what I really want you to start thinking about tonight, or when you're watching this presentation. Just sort of step back and look at the price that sugar or carb addiction is taking for you. Physically, it might not be affecting your result, but are you finding that you're wanting to eat carbs all the time, or thinking about it, or more importantly, when you do start, you can't stop? You see, when I came to this phase of my life where I had my son and life was really busy and you're not in control of your sleep and you're so tired, that was when I started doing this silly stuff with sugar. Let me give you just a brief overview of Cheryl's crazy. Like I said, this is me at my most vulnerable. Like, seriously, when I'm talking about me and sugar, I put it all on the table, no hold barred. So this is what my addiction phase, what it looked like. This is the kind of things I used to do. And by the way, I've had clients tell me that they do some of these things too. So I know I'm not alone. There's many of us out there. But it was things like, hiding when I wanted to eat. I'd hide in the pantry. I'd be up there sneaking something from the kids' goodie bags. I was never a huge volume binger, which is probably why I didn't necessarily gain a lot of weight from my sugar, but it was always little and often. I'd have a biscuit after dinner, then I'd want something else, and I might have half a protein bar. I still wouldn't be satisfied. I'd be thinking about it. So then I might, get stuck into the kids' Halloween bag and take a couple of lollies, or, oh shit, I've eaten too many. Oh no, now I need to go and replace them because the kids are going to notice. Just this constant thinking. And then it still wasn't enough. Oh, I might eat some cooking chocolate. So, a lot of evenings, especially, it was just one thing after the other, this constant obsession with thinking about sweet food, or it would start in the afternoon, wanting something after lunch and then not being able to stop. That's the whole thing, not being able to stop with one. That is one of the key signs that this is crossing over from just a craving to something a little bit more serious. Obsessive thoughts, thinking about it all the time. Compulsively eating stuff. Now, true story, confession time. I've eaten food out of the rubbish, sugary stuff. Not proud to admit that, but I did more than once. Food off the floor, frozen food, kids' leftovers, half eaten, God knows what from my kids. Honest confession, but I did it because that's just what this addiction did to me. Every time I would put on a pair of new pants, in the pocket, I'd find like a little hidden wrapper from one of those little chocolate bars because I'd probably, got it and eaten it in my bedroom and then hidden the wrapper so my husband wouldn't see it. So every pocket always had some kind of little wrapper in it. I'd wake up in the morning with that feeling of, oh, fuck, I did it again. Why did I do that? Come on, Cheryl, don't do that today. For 3 of the years that I had this terrible sugar addiction, ladies, I was starting being a nutritionist. I mean, this was a deep source of confusion for me and frustration and pissed offness because I'm like, come on, Cheryl, you are starting to help other people here. Everything else is going really well. Why on earth are you still doing this silly shit with sugar? Very frustrating. I would lie about having sugar, steal my kids' food, and, I would keep eating even if I was full. You might eat dinner and think, oh, now I've got to have something sweet. Oh my God, I'm so full and bloated, but, you keep eating or go back for more. And lastly, I would eat the sugar and just get really grumpy, and it wasn't like I would turn into some raging, screaming animal and rip my clothes off and turn green like the Incredible Hulk or something. But I just started to notice, and this was the point that I finally decided to take action. I really noticed that when I was in the sugar, which was most nights, afterwards, I'd get kind of grumpy with my husband, or I'd start getting pissed off at the kids. And I would, I sort of started stepping back and realizing, far out, Cheryl, you're being a really grumpy mum because you're pissed off at yourself. And why are you pissed off at yourself? Because you're doing this stuff with sugar and maybe your pants feel a bit tight. And I just really, when I started to take note, not of the physical consequences, but the mental consequences, this was when I really decided that it was time to take action. And that took 7 years. So, it took me quite some time before I really noticed, which again, I must be a slow learner. But I think part of the reason is because it didn't cause me to gain weight, you see. So in my mind, like I said, I just used to justify it. Oh, well, it's not such a big deal. You don't have to be perfect. But man, I often say, if I had $1 for every, if I put as much energy to think about making money as I did thinking about when can I eat again, when can I eat something sweet, I'd be a millionaire. Should have channeled that energy somewhere else. But the most weird and baffling thing about my eating behaviors at this time was if I'd overeaten and I felt so full and sick, do you know what I would want to do? Eat more sugar. Like, how crazy is that? I'd be so full that I'd keep having this thought of, oh, what can I eat now to make myself feel better? Like, seriously, who does that? Like, who would think that the solution to overeating is eating more? I did. And I know you might be thinking, Cheryl, you are a real whack job. But actually, I know that having talked to many people who share this problem, I know that I'm not alone. And, people don't often talk about this kind of thing. It is quite It is quite, like I said, it's a very frustrating thing. It's confusing, it's shameful, especially for me when I was starting to work as a nutritionist. I mean, it really was not in alignment with the actions that I wanted to be taking. But this is why I do trainings like this, because I know that I'm not alone and I want to share where I was at to give hope that if I can overcome this, which I did, then so can you and so can anybody. Because if I can do it, they can too. That is for sure. Right. So that's a little bit of an insight into where I was at. And let's just quickly look at this difference in definition between cravings. Now, a craving is not unusual. I would not say it's serious. And I would say in a weight loss journey, especially, it's quite normal and fine. So having a craving is just, that's this kind of intense or urgent, when you want something. It's very normal, especially if you're tired, that you might have the occasional craving for something sugary or something salty or something crunchy. That is normal. That's a very normal physiological reaction to a tired brain. It would kind of go like, oh gosh, I'm tired. I didn't sleep very well. Boy, I really want a little something. Oh, there's a muffin. You know what? I might just have half a muffin. And then I would go and have that. And then I just eat it, really enjoy it, and just carry on with my day. Now, that craving and that action might not be very helpful in weight loss because, of course, we know even having half a muffin is probably going to give me 20 grams or 25 grams of carb. Not great, but it's just something that's eaten and then we carry on. And this our cog up here in our mind, it doesn't start ticking over. It doesn't start the old, oh God, now that I've had a muffin, oh, I just want more now. Okay, I'm going to go back. I'm going to eat the other half. Oh shit, that didn't do it. Okay, where's the biscuits? Like, this is the difference. An occasional craving is quite normal, and usually people don't react in the way that I reacted and a lot of other people react. It's more of a case of the cravings, and if you give in to them, are not great for weight loss, but it's certainly not at the same level of digging a bit deeper where it really sets off this thought pattern and gets our head going. So this is how I want you to distinguish the difference. And you might watch this and think, oh, actually, I'm okay because, I don't go to that sort of darker place or more intense place. I do have cravings, but actually it's not too often. And yeah, I might just eat that thing and then get on with it. And I'm still happy in my weight loss journey. And if that's the outcome you're having from watching this, great. I think that's perfect. But if you're finding that you can relate to a little bit more what I'm saying, then we sort of cross this line to say, yeah, this is a little bit more serious and it probably is going to have a big impact on your journey, which is when we look at the definition of addiction, which is it's more this physiological, psychological, and physical inability to stop consuming something, whether it's a chemical or a drug or activity or a substance. In our case, it's food, which you could argue does have a drug-like effect, especially sugar. I mean, some studies have shown sugar to be more addictive than cocaine, even though it's causing psychological and physical harm, and I think that is the difference. It might not be as serious as an alcoholic who's passed out in the corner having wet their pants. It's not maybe quite that level of serious, but it is causing harm. And the actions that I've even just described about the stuff that I used to do, well, that was psychological harm, definitely physical harm. And that's where, when that pattern is repeated, it's definitely a bit more serious. And I encourage you to keep watching and listen through the 5-step plan that I recommend just to get the ball rolling if you've decided you don't want to do this anymore, if you want to break free from this pattern. And here's a couple of questions I'll ask you just to think about in terms of your own journey, where you're at. So these are just a few eye-opening questions to get the ball rolling in your mind. How often do you think about sugar or carbs during the day? Is it a lot? Is it not so often? Or are you like I used to be, where I would wake up pissed off with what I'd eaten the night before, and yet also thinking ahead to what I was going to eat that day? Very frustrating. And certainly in the afternoons, I would start thinking about it a lot. No one else knew that. I'm just having a look at the chat. Hi, Cheryl, Laura here. Thank you for your comment. Laura's just said it's so true. Oh, I'm so glad you're relating to this, Laura. Think a lot about sugary foods and you're typing there because you're in bed. Oh, look, Laura, just the fact that you've commented that and that this is resonating just gives me so much joy because this is why I'm doing this. I know that it can be so frustrating when we're going through this and it feels really lonely. Like I used to show up for my nutrition appointments, ladies, and I was probably not a nut job client. I had a great relationship with my nutritionist, but sometimes I would sit there just so upset with myself and I'd cry, just like people do with me. That's why I have so much empathy because I've done it myself for years. And I would feel so annoyed at myself because I just couldn't follow the plan properly. And it would really be so frustrating for me. And, my nutritionist, I never really told her the truth, to be honest, because I used to like eat biscuits and just not write it down on my food diary. I tried to hide it from her too. I mean, it's quite ridiculous, as if she didn't realize she didn't know that I'd been lying because, I guess most people are honest, but anyway, and it really was a source of such loneliness because I didn't talk to anyone about it because I'd hide and eat. So yeah, it's so nice to be able to connect with others who get it. Okay, question number 2. Do you ever sneak food or hide what you're doing? Are you kind of things that I hear are I buy food when I'm driving from the gas station or petrol station and then eat it in my car. And then I throw the wrappers away before I get home, because I don't want my husband to know or anyone else to know that I've done it. Or going through the drive-through and then hiding it so no one knows you've eaten it. Just that kind of sneaky behavior that you just know deep down is not great and you don't really want to keep doing it. And what impact is this eating pattern having on your health? Is it stopping you from getting to your goal? Is it causing you to gain the weight back? Is it causing you to get a bit moody and grumpy? And I think the most important question is this one. Do you want your whole life to be defined by this relationship with sugar and carbs? For me, I let it happen for 7 years, and that was a long time. So I'm very glad that I dealt with it. I certainly, my life past being in the sugar is very, very different from how it was. And I'm so glad that I did it because I could have seen my patterns carrying on for most of my life. And it feels really good to have broken that, that's for sure. And in my experience, and again, I'm not the world's expert in addiction by any means, but usually when I talk to people who have the sugar problem, they have had it in some form of another most of their life, and it's been a big impact on their weight journey. So you have to sort of say, well, look, if this has been a problem for me for quite a while, chances are it's not going to magically cure itself. I have to look at taking some other action, which is what we'll talk about now. Because it's always good to just come back to and say, sugar and overconsumption, it does have physical effects in this particular picture. I mean, of course, weight gain is just one of it. On the side here, this is actually proper 3D brain scans that show at the top, that's what a normal brain looks like. And at the bottom is the brain scan from someone who's overweight and has type 2 diabetes because their blood sugars have been too high. And it literally, if you're continually having a high intake, especially of sugar and carbs, it affects your brain. It's gonna, it has the potential to impact your long-term brain health. So there's a lot more at stake than just a bit of excess fat on the body. And of course, as I've already discussed, there is a mental toll to play of the frustration, the anguish, the moodiness and grumpiness, the energy highs and lows. We don't want that anymore, ladies. It's time for a new path. So let's look at the action plan that I took. So I've told you where I was at. I'm just going to talk you through now what I did. And these are really practical steps that I know you can take as well if you want to. And this is not something you're going to do in a week by any means. But my hope is that this is just going to start getting the dialogue going for you internally. It's just going to awaken up this thought process of looking at where you're at now and where you want to go, and give you a plan to start thinking about. And if you're ready to take action, you can put it into place. So step number one is the awareness. Nothing's ever going to change until you become aware that it's a problem. I think for those of you watching, this presentation could be that step. It might be the first time that you've really thought about it in this way, or maybe you're already quite aware, which is why you're watching in the first place. For me, as silly as it sounds, even though I did these actions for 7 years, it really wasn't until I started to pay more attention to the mental toll. And the real key for me was my boy, that little cutie with the kilt on. I remember when he was about 4.5. Well, no, he must have been younger than that because, yeah, he was about 4 anyway. And he was eating some ice cream. And then he got up and he had to go to the toilet to do number twos. And he picked up his little bowl of ice cream and went to take it with him. And I said, Carlos, don't take food into the toilet. That's gross. And he turned around and said to me, oh, but I have to, because if I leave it here, you're going to eat it. And I looked at him and I was like, oh my God, he knows my secret. And you know what? He was right. Why did I say it to him? Because I wanted to eat it. Isn't that funny? So yes, I got called out by the little 4-year-old who just knew exactly what I was doing, and he knew exactly what my thoughts were. And that was such a bolt for me. That was like, oh shit, the kid knows. Like, oh no, my little secret's been discovered by the little man. Oh dear. So for me, funnily enough, that was when I thought, oh, I've got to do something about this, because I don't want my child to have to hide their food because mum's going to eat it. Like, that's just not the kind of mum. That's not the kind of mum I wanted to be. So that was for me the real key moment where I thought, yeah, let's get started. And then from there, and this was the part that took me a year. So when I finally realized, okay, I need to do something about this. And I actually had found also a podcast of Overeaters Anonymous, which was very interesting, listening to people talk about their journeys of addiction. And I could relate to so much of what the people were saying. So that was another step that really cemented it for me. And I realized, okay, I've got to quit sugar. Then we had the phase of accepting that and actually taking action. Now, I'm embarrassed to admit this step took me 1 whole year. Now, I'm here tonight to tell you, please don't let it take you that long. The next step, which is actually the action step of step 4, that took me a whole year to implement, and I tried very hard, because while I accepted that I wanted to quit sugar, I also couldn't really accept that that was the action I had to take. I wanted to cut back on sugar, but I was like an alcoholic who just wanted to be able to drink like a normal person. You know, like I just wanted to not have sugar during the week, but in the weekend I wanted a treat. That was how it started. Okay, no sugar during the week, and on Saturday I'm going to have something, and I'm going to really enjoy it, and then I'll be normal. Except I couldn't do that, because I would have my little something on Saturday, and then that little something would just explode to a whole day, a whole night of doing the same silly shit, and then waking up on Sunday and kind of eating a bit on Sunday too. Oh dear, let's start again on Monday. So I repeated that pattern for a while. And then the next step for me was, okay, well, I accept that, I can't sort of do it every weekend, but I'm going to do it once a month. So once a month, I'm going to be good the whole rest of the time. And then once a month, I'm going to go to a bakery with my best friend. We'll have a girls' day. And I'm going to buy the yummiest piece of cake that I can find, and I'm going to put cream on it, and I'm going to light a candle and go to town. So I did. I tried that for a few months, except I couldn't be a normal person with that either, because I would have that beautiful piece of cake, and then all it would do was awaken this desire within. It would just open up the floodgates again. And driving home, all I could think about was, oh God, where do I get more? Like it was just so frustrating. Like I couldn't just eat the cake and then move on. Oh no. Once I'd done it, it was just right back into the quagmire of sugar hell, really. And that might last for a day, it might last for 2, it might last for 3. I'd have to go to the gym and work off the calories. I might gain half a kilo, I might gain 1, you know, the pattern. So then I realized, okay, Cheryl, you're not normal. That took me a year, like an alcoholic, like I can't just go to the bar and have 1 drink. That process took me 1 whole year to finally take the action that got me off the sugar, which is going to be step 4. But I just want to share with you, please don't let it take you that long. I'm a slow learner, like I said. These things took me time, but the process that was very helpful for me, and this is what I recommend, is journaling. If you're sitting there thinking, well, how do I get started? How do I know where I'm at? The best way that I recommend, which is what got me through that acceptance phase of finally accepting that, Cheryl, this is not working, you've got to do something else. It was journaling. And I've got a box in my office with about 4 journals in it that are filled with my ramblings and thoughts and musings and quotes and affirmations and all the rest. So that process of writing was how I finally came to that part of just accepting that I wasn't normal, and I wasn't acting normal. So it was time for me to finally accept that and take the action that would work. And funnily enough, when I finally accepted that and was ready to take step 4, that was the easiest part of the whole process. So the pre-part took me quite some time. The next stage was actually very easy because it was a black and white, and that is abstinence. So I just decided finally, after all of that testing, that, you know what, I'm not normal, and there we go. So I'm just not going to eat it anymore. And when I'd finally decided that, and I flicked that switch and I was ready to accept it, that was the day that freedom began. Because once I made that decision, I stopped eating sugar, and I stopped permanently. And now we're 10 years later, and I'm very proud to say I don't eat sugar. It's been 10 years of freedom. And that has just come from being willing to make what would sound like a very simple decision. I could have just done this presentation in 5 minutes and said, okay, you've got the sugar problem, stop eating sugar. Done, bye. Easy, eh? It sounds so easy, but it's not. And that's the message I want to share with you. If you're just starting out in this, you might be at the point where you're like, actually, Cheryl, no, this is easy. I'm with you, girl. I'm ready to be abstinent. Tell me what the next step is, which I will. Great. You can fast track. It doesn't have to take you a year. It doesn't have to take you 7 years to make that decision. You can make it right now, but you don't have to. If you want to explore this further, do some journaling over it, write about it, start to observe your actions, be really aware of how you're responding, how you're thinking. I'm not saying this is the answer for everyone, but man, it certainly worked for me, and it's worked for many, many other people. And even though it sounds very simple, it's a very black and white thing, because once you decide to become abstinent, there is no gray. It's a big step, but it comes with a huge reward, and that is freedom and control. Because when you've broken yourself free from that grips of the compulsion and the obsessive thoughts and all of those silly actions, it's such a relief. It really is. And I can only say that I never thought it would be possible for me, but it has been. So let me just quickly show you now this process that I use for abstinence. And I use a very simple one, which actually comes from Overeaters Anonymous, which is looking at food in traffic lights: red light, orange light, green light. So you can do everything on one page. It's a one-page miracle. And this is what you do. You get your little piece of A4, and you have 3 columns: the red, the orange, and the green. And this is your abstinence food plan. So the green is basically all food that you know is fine. You don't have to list it all down, but green means, yep, I can eat. This is all my good low carb food on my plan, food that I enjoy. Great. Orange and red. Let's start with red. Red are the foods that you know you are not in control with. You can't stop with one and you can't eat like a lady. You know, eating food out of the rubbish bin, not ladylike. You know, eating your half-eaten kids' ice cream, not ladylike. You know, eating food off the floor, not your best moment, Cheryl. You know, so if you know there are just, and this might be as specific as one thing, that's fine. I always say when I'm working through an abstinence plan with someone, make the red list as specific as possible, because what goes on the red is now out of bounds. And I don't mean you can't just eat it because, you know, it's the weekend or it's your birthday. This is, I no longer eat this food because this food is taking me out of control. So the red list on my red list is milk chocolate of any kinds, biscuits, okay, normal biscuits, cake, all of the usual suspects, really. I'm just that anything carby, sweet, is my no-go. Anything with sort of normal sugar, that's what's on my abstinence list. I only have one exception, which is if my mother has made something. If my mother makes a really special dessert, which doesn't happen very often, I will have a piece. And that's not because I want it or need it, but because it's a special connection to my mum, and I'm not going to have my mum forever. So that's just something I've decided that I want to do, to partake. And luckily it doesn't happen very often, or then it's going to be a weight problem, which we don't want. So that's my only exception. Otherwise, for 10 years, that food is just in the red. So that's on my red. The orange is foods that you're not sure about, so you just want to keep observing. It might be something like cheese, peanut butter. It might be food that sometimes you're out of control and then other times you're okay. So in the beginning, when you're working through this abstinence plan, you might move the foods around. You might have something on orange and then move it to red. Funnily enough for me, there are even some low carb foods that I don't eat because I just find them too yummy. Some of the stuff at Keto by D, if I have something and it kind of starts calling my name again and I just keep thinking about it, I just mentally, I don't have my little sheet anymore, but I just don't eat it. I just kind of immediately put it onto the red because I think, not a good choice for you, Cheryl. And there's not many things in that category. Probably in a low carb for me, the one that I don't eat is white chocolate. The VitaWorks white chocolate, I find just a wee bit too moreish. I can't control myself with that one, but I'm pretty much good with everything else. You know, so this is your plan. It's very unique to you, but this is kind of like, and it's all on one page. This is not hard at all. It's not complicated. One page, which is you just really honing in on the foods that you know you need to let go of right now in order to get to the next step on your journey. Now, you might not have to do this forever, ladies. I'm not saying you have to write your list on a stone tablet and commit it over to your higher power forever. No, you don't. You can change this around. No one's judging you. We're not entering into the sugar-free Olympics. You know, you don't have to go for a gold medal. It's just a template for you to get your sanity back and to get the weight loss happening in a controlled way, because you can actually follow the plan without doing the silly stuff. That's all this is. It's incredibly powerful. Once you're ready to take this step, it's actually the easy part. It really is. And the last step is, this is my abstinence golden quote. 0 is so much easier than 1. It so is. I tried to have 1. Doesn't work. It's like telling an alcoholic to just have a glass. Nah. 1 just awakens that devil within, and good luck putting her back in her cage. My one, Cheryl the sugar addict, is firmly in her cage. The cage is locked. She's dormant. I ain't going to wake her up again. She's gone, baby. Well, she's still there, but she's quiet now. She's sleeping. I'll just leave her sleeping. And of course, step 5 is bringing in the alternatives. So just because we've given up or, decided to risk, let go of certain foods, doesn't mean we have to live a life of doom and gloom. We can bring in whatever sugar-free substitutes tickle our fancy or carbohydrate substitutes And, it's absolutely fine for you to eat these. The only red flag is if you find you can't stop. So for me, I've found that dark chocolate, I have a couple of squares, love it. Carry on with my day. I don't think about it. I don't overeat it, but I bloody enjoy it. Nothing wrong with that. There's a very big difference between enjoyment and addiction. Just like I might have a craving sometimes for a bit of, around time of the month. That's when I get the sugar-free chocolate. Oh, I've got a craving. And then I eat it and just carry on. I don't go and buy 10 bars. So within the limits of your control, if you find that these yummy sugar-free options, maybe some lemon curd with yogurt, yum, there's nothing wrong with you getting pleasure from these foods, but we need to be in control. That's the key. So of course, we've got all of these yummy sugar-free alternatives, and of course, the carb alternatives, whether it's our lovely bread, chips, pork crackle, wraps. There's nothing wrong with substituting the foods, the stuff that you have been eating with your low carb alternatives, as long as you stay in control. That's the key. And I want you to open that possibility to have as many yummy things as possible so that you're really enjoying your food. Because as we know, you've got to enjoy it to keep going so you can achieve your goal. It's really important. I encourage you to eat as many of the alternatives as you can so that you still feel really a lot of pleasure. If you're an emotional eater, you're going to need some pleasure from food, and that's fine. It's not a crime. You can still achieve your weight loss goal and have these things. I eat dark chocolate most days. Not every day, but most days, if I'm being honest. I'll have a square after a meal, and that's fine. I'm in control. Although I do have it most days, I would say, yes, I am in control, but yeah, I definitely have to have a boundary on it. Like I only get 1 bar a week. I don't buy more than that. So yeah, I'm always cautious that I never ever want to let a food have control over me again. I know what that feels like, and no, thank you. Okay, so that is my 5-step process: being aware, accepting, then being willing to take action of some kind. And as I said, that stage can be very imperfect. There's no right and wrong. It's just a process of exploration. But if you're willing to take the step of abstinence and bringing in these alternatives, all of the A's, I love it when things have alliteration. It just really works for my head. If you can do this, I know that it is going to really help you in your physical journey and your mental journey so that you can not just lose weight, but you will keep it off forever. And won't that be amazing? Look, thank you so much. Next month, obviously, this is the training that I've done this month in the academy. And just to let you know, next month we have an amazing naturopath who specializes in hormones. I've met her in a business group, and she's going to come and do a talk all about hormones and keeping our hormones happy when we're on a weight loss journey. So that's going to be awesome.